Hi guys, this is Kimmy Yanks and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, I was in the middle of a very busy season work-wise, and at the same time I was trying to complete and catch up on the backlog of blogs that I have. Most importantly, my experience at the 2023 MotoGP of Bharat. The blogs are yet to come out on my official blog link, and also documenting my experiences on board Emirates. Two videos that are supposed to be published on YouTube in the near future. So all this had to take backstage because we were hit, I can say, by an absolute shocker of a news, if I can put it that way, from the world of Formula One. Lewis Hamilton has chosen to leave Mercedes at the end of the 2024 season, and he will be joining Scuderia Ferrari F1 Team from 2025 in what seems to be a multi-year contract. Now, we've all known Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes, their association now in the turbo era. 11 years, 6 titles, 82 victories, something that has actually put him in the pantheon of greats in the world of Formula One, equal in terms of world titles with Michael Schumacher, and he could have had his 8th had it not been for that controversial Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in 2021. Anyways, the past is past. But yes, Lewis Hamilton is now the most successful driver on the grid and probably is eyeing an 8th world title, a feat that no other Formula World Champion has achieved thus far. So, what is it that actually has driven Lewis Hamilton to say goodbye to such a successful partnership over the years, and what has been a deciding factor in him choosing Ferrari? At the same time, what happens with Carlos Sainz? Where does he go? What next for Mercedes? Who do they get on board from 2025? And yeah, what is in store for Ferrari, considering the fact that they've got their star kid and their star driver in Charles Leclerc, now partnering the most successful driver on the grid in Lewis Hamilton. So, first up, let's talk about Lewis himself, and yeah, try and work out what really was going on in his mind and what really pushed him into his decision to leave Mercedes. Well, if you actually go to see, Lewis Hamilton has, unlike the other drivers, been in some of the best teams in his Formula One career. He started his Formula One career with McLaren Mercedes, which back then was, you can say, a Mercedes works team, where he won his first title in 2008, followed by the big money switch to Mercedes, the Silver Arrows, in 2013, a decision that was not really understood by almost all of us, fans and experts and media included, because Mercedes were nowhere close to the top end of the grid, or rather the sharp end of the grid. And even though Mercedes was putting in pole positions, there was a win here or there at best, and that was it. But then in came the technical regulations overhaul of 2014, and the rest is history. Winning 6 titles from there on was a feat that no one else could have ever imagined. But Lewis was flawless. He was brilliant. He was consistent, and he made the most of it when it came to winning races and winning titles. And then came in another technical regulations overhaul in 2022. This was to bring the rest of the pack closer, try and have a more level playing field. And Mercedes all of a sudden found themselves struggling to deliver results as consistently as they were in the first chapter of the turbo era. We all know what has transpired in the last 2 seasons. Max Verstappen and Red Bull have been absolutely dominant. In 2022 and 2023, Lewis Hamilton failed to win even one race, which has never happened in his Formula One career. So, for a man of Lewis Hamilton's caliber, even though he's at a ripe old age of 39, one might say, okay, he's at the twilight of his career and probably should just be looking forward to retiring. after such a glorious career in Formula One. But we've seen Lewis Hamilton as hungry as we've ever seen him in the past. He still wants to win races. He still is eyeing that 8th title. There were some rumor mills that were, working overtime last year, suggesting that Lewis Hamilton had begun talks with Ferrari, which of course were rubbished by some, and eventually everything died down. And Hamilton suddenly signed for Ferrari, opting to activate a clause in his contract which allowed him to leave Mercedes at the end of this season, a season which is yet to begin. And we still have a full season of seeing Lewis Hamilton in a Mercedes, the W15, and then making the switch to the Scuderia Red in 2025. So probably I think he's seen something in that W15, at least from the simulator tests. Mercedes have probably once again gone down a wrong path, and they might not be able to deliver the results or the victories that he's hoping for. And I think he sees this as a wise decision for him to say goodbye to to Mercedes, and join Ferrari. We also have a technical regulations overhaul again coming in 2026. So 2025 will give Lewis an entire year to basically settle in with his new team, get working with the mechanics, form a rapport and a relationship, and then from there on go full throttle when the new regulations kick in 2026. If you look at Mercedes, what next for Mercedes? Well, it's come as a shock to them. Let's be honest about it. Nobody would have expected Lewis Hamilton to have pulled the plug like this. It is very similar to the situation we saw with Marc Marquez and Repsol Honda. Marc Marquez has had 6 Premier Class titles in the world of MotoGP with Repsol Honda alone, and it was unthinkable for Marc to say goodbye to Repsol Honda and go elsewhere. But ever since his career-threatening injury in 2020, we all know he's been having crashes, struggling to deliver wins, and Honda has basically gone down a very wrong development path, which has eventually driven him to leave Honda and join Gresini Ducati, breaking his contract with Honda, and then now he's racing for Gresini Ducati starting from this season. So Mercedes finds itself in a very similar situation like Honda, and now they have a difficult decision to make for 2025. Thankfully, they have an entire season to work out things for them, and initial reports suggest that they have tried to touch base with Fernando Alonso, who is currently racing in Aston Martin. As of now, Fernando has decided to hold his horses and weigh his options before establishing any further contact with the Brackley-based outfit. Interestingly, for Mercedes, I think they are spoiled for choice, because at the end of 2024, there are 13 drivers that actually go out of contract in Formula One, and they will have loads of options to choose from. We also have 2 prodigies from their driver academy, or rather their junior academy, in Frederic Vesti, who was the runner-up in the 2023 Formula 2 Championship to Theo Pourchaire, and we've got the upcoming and rising star, talk of the town, Kimi Antonelli, who will now be racing in Formula 2. George Russell is the future for Mercedes, and he has been in a way on a leash. Of course, we all know with Lewis's experience that it's very difficult to beat him even in a non-performing car. But there were instances and there were days when George Russell displayed brilliance, delivered results, and even won victories, even won races. All's not lost for Mercedes, because they still have a very potent and very talented and very young racer in George Russell. Other than Fernando Alonso, there are 2 other drivers that are prospects for Mercedes in 2025. This is of course based on news from renowned media outlets. One is Alexander Albon and the other is Esteban Ocon. Well, first up, let's talk about Alexander Albon, partner to Max Verstappen before he got demoted to the role of a test driver. and then from there on he actually moved over to Williams and is currently racing for Williams, producing some incredibly amazing results. Well, if you look at Alexander Albon, based on what we have seen of him so far in Formula One, the Thai driver has now gained a lot more experience compared to his time in Red Bull, and he's more level headed. At the same time, he also understands the limitations of the Mercedes engine, since Williams is a customer of Mercedes team. So, Mercedes, of course, has access to seeing how his performances have been thus far. And he seems to be a very good prospect for Mercedes for that second seat alongside George Russell. In terms of the intra-team relationship, I'm sure that George Russell should be happy to have someone in Alexander Albon with him, because they have a very close-knit unit, these young drivers from the world of Formula One, and it should not be such a big task for Alexander to find his feet in his new team. Second up, we've got Esteban Ocon. If you remember, Esteban was without a drive, and Toto Wolff promised Esteban that he would get him a Formula One drive, which he eventually did with a drive at Alpine. Now, honestly speaking, I don't think that Mercedes would want to promote him into that Mercedes seat. Rather, they would let him be at the other works team in Alpine. Alpine, of course, is very happy to have a French driver. In fact, an all-French lineup in their team, because at the end of the day, they are a French constructor. So the chances of Esteban Ocon making his switch over to Mercedes seems unlikely, although it is a very appealing prospect for the Frenchman itself. There is, however, a third driver too that we should be looking at in these prospects for Mercedes, and that, of course, is the current reserve driver, Mick Schumacher. We all know that Mick did really well in Formula 2, didn't really, or rather, let's say, struggled to perform at a level that Haas F1 had expected of him, and eventually Haas had to let go. However, Mick did land a Mercedes reserve role, and he currently sits as the third driver in the team. Of course, Mercedes now has access to all the data, and they know what the strengths and weaknesses are for Mick Schumacher. They also know what kind of setup Mick prefers. So there won't be much in terms of development that Mercedes has to work on with Mick Schumacher, but during his time at Haas, he did suffer from a lot of crashes, which actually bumped up their bills. But the then team principal, Gunther Steiner, was quite critical of his driving tactics and the damages that the team had to incur due to his frequent crashes. From the current crop, if I were to choose someone, then it would have to be Albon. Let's talk about Carlos Sainz. What next for Carlos Sainz? Well, Carlos was the only non-Red Bull victor in the 2023 season, where he produced a tactical masterclass in Singapore. Well, you've got to feel for the Spaniard, because he has been more consistent than Leclerc in 2023. He's actually been improving with every passing race, getting used to that car, and now developing a very close relationship with his engineers. But motorsports is a tough business, and it can be very brutal sometimes, and we just see Carlos Sainz now searching for a drive for 2025. And if you actually see his career path, it's been through a lot of difficult times. He's had some really tough teammates to work with. You talk about Max Verstappen in Toro Rosso, and then Sainz being overlooked for Max, who eventually won on debut in Spain 2016. Then moving over to Renault, where he actually was really struggling to make things work. From there on, moving on to McLaren, where he really performed well, formed a great partnership with Lando Norris, and then eventually making the big move to Ferrari, hoping to get a drive and a car that would catapult him into the title challenge. Unfortunately, It's been a tough time for Carlos Sainz, and now he has to produce drives in 2024 to make a strong case for himself with one of the other suitors that might be having a look at his driving prowess. So, what next for Carlos Sainz? Does he go to Mercedes? Does he go to Aston Martin? Does he go to Red Bull? Or does he go to Sauber, which is due to become Audi in 2026? The possibility of having a driver swap, Lewis Hamilton go to Ferrari, and let's say Carlos Sainz coming to Mercedes, does look uh, does look like a prospect, but personally I feel that's highly unlikely because Mercedes is spoiled for choice. At the same time, Mercedes outperformed Ferrari in 2023. They would rather look elsewhere and try get someone like Sergio Perez, who also is running out of a contract at the end of 2024. And Sergio Perez being in the title winning car, both in the drivers and the constructors championship, would have a lot more to offer in terms of technical feedback than Carlos Sainz. So yeah, although the possibility is very real where we could see Hamilton and Carlos swapping seats, I don't think this is something that might happen. But hey, who knows? We could all be wrong. The second option we have is, of course, Red Bull. Sergio Perez is without a contract, and Carlos could join Red Bull and team up again with his ex teammate in Max Verstappen. But considering the mental load and the mental demand that Max Verstappen puts on any teammate with the level of performances that he gives, I think it's going to be really tough for him. The two realistic options that I look at, and many of the experts have actually mentioned this too, is Aston Martin. Aston Martin, well, there are two reasons. One is, of course, we have got Fernando Alonso there, who is also Carlos Sainz's hero, and there is no better prospect of being a teammate with your hero and help Aston Martin move up towards the sharp end of the grid, probably win a race here or there, and at the same time consistently finish on the podium. So yeah, Aston Martin seems to be a very realistic prospect for Carlos Sainz. The fourth team that could be a good choice for Carlos to make is the Sauber team, which is now called Stake F1 Team. And Stake F1 Team actually has both its drivers out of contract at the end of this season, that is 2024. And at the same time, in 2026, we have Audi coming in, which will actually come in as a works team. So Carlos would actually have a lot more at his disposal when it comes to building and developing the car. At the same time, I believe at Stake or Audi, he will be considered as the number one driver. So his inputs will have precedence over any other co-driver that the team opts for, and yeah, he could actually be the one that propels Audi, towards getting good results. Finally, let's talk about the most successful team on the grid, the only team to have raced in every season of Formula One, the Scuderia Ferrari F1 team. Big news. Something that it's like, a handshake between two giants of the Formula One world. The giant of Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, the most successful driver on the grid, and Ferrari, Scuderia Ferrari F1 team, the most successful team on the grid, the most followed team on the grid. Sebastian Vettel once said, everyone is a Ferrari fan. Of course, the great Enzo Ferrari had said that you give a child a pen and a paper and ask him to draw a car and he'll color it red. There is a saying in the paddock. I've heard this so often. You are not considered a great driver until you land a drive at Ferrari. And with all the accolades and all the titles and all the victories and all those pole positions that Lewis Hamilton has amassed, unpopular opinion would be that he still isn't a racing great because he hadn't driven for Ferrari up until now. And although he is at the twilight of his career, the brand of Lewis Hamilton still carries a lot of value, a lot of weight, as is evident, from the market reactions that we have seen in the past 72 hours. And it's great news for the stakeholders and for the board as well. Of course, off track, brilliant decision, master stroke. It has hit Mercedes for sure big time because they've lost their star driver, and it's a win-win for Ferrari because they've gotten a driver that honestly on paper is more accomplished and recognized than the one who will now be saying goodbye at the end of 2024. However, I personally do have some reservations about this partnership that we are going to see between Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Well, Charles is the star driver. He was the one who came up through the ranks for Ferrari, a part of the Ferrari Driver Academy, and the one everyone believed was the elect, the champion elect, someone who would actually bring back the driver's title for the Scuderia Ferrari F1 team after 2007. But Charles has struggled and faltered in 2-3 departments, I must say. One, of course, is there is performance delta between Ferrari and the runaway favorites in Red Bull. So yes, of course, there are shortcomings in the car itself. However, when it comes to having racecraft, Charles Leclerc lacks that cutting edge that we saw in a Michael Schumacher or in a Sebastian Vettel or even in Kimi Raikkonen for that matter, where a driver decided to make strategic calls then following the ones made from the pit wall, because at the end of the day you are the one driving the car, the kind of feedback you are getting from the car, and sometimes you have to trust your gut and go with what you feel. That, I think, probably is where Charles Leclerc is lacking, and that is one of the reasons why he has really struggled to perform at the level that we all were hoping for and the level that we have seen so far in all the feeder categories that he has raced in. That, I think, is what Lewis Hamilton is going to be an absolute ace at because of his experience, because of his never say die attitude, and at the same time having been in a team like Mercedes where he's always been pursuing excellence. Currently on the grid, I only see Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton operating at a level that we've never seen any other driver operate at. Lewis won't take too much time in claiming the ascendancy in this intra-team battle with Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc is still the future for Ferrari, and he's extended his current contract. So now for Charles to see someone of the aura of Lewis Hamilton walk in as a teammate is definitely going to be a threatening prospect for him, because now he cannot afford any slip ups and he has to perform at a level that will match Lewis sector for sector, lap for lap, race for race. In a way, it's a good grooming time for Charles, because he will have so much to learn from a more experienced and a more accomplished Lewis Hamilton, but at the same time he would have to keep that level of consistency and mental fortitude, something that has not yet been tested. We all know what happened to Nico Rosberg in 2016 after he won the title. Just the mental strain that he had to go through in the title battles with Lewis left him in a position where he simply couldn't continue. And I understand that because, like I said, Max and Lewis operate at a level that nobody else can operate. So Charles has been untested in this territory, so it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds on track. This is also a driver pairing that we've not seen in Ferrari, because Ferrari has always had a defined number one and a defined number two. The only time we can say we've seen this in the recent past where we've had two champion drivers is, of course, between Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen. But knowing how close they were, or rather how close they are as friends, whatever incidents they did have on track were all sorted out behind closed doors. A 7-time world champion, accolades galore to his name. On the other side, you've got your young talent who is wanting to win titles for your team and is definitely uh, the very racer that you wanted to build a race winning team with. So, yeah, tough times ahead for Ferrari. Bold decisions have been made from both sides of the camp, both on Lewis's side as well as Ferrari's side. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch these two drivers go wheel to wheel. Who would have thought Lewis Hamilton would have joined Scuderia Ferrari? So, guys, this brings me to the end of this video. I've tried to cover as many topics as I could. The silly season has already begun, and we still have a full season to go before we actually see Lewis Hamilton donning the colors of the Scuderia Red. But yes, I just wanted to share my 2 cents on this big money move that Lewis Hamilton has made. The dynamics of this season will change as well, because Mercedes now knows that Lewis is on the way out, so they would be very careful with what they share in terms of their development path with Lewis. And thank you so much for watching. There is more content coming your way, so watch this space. I will be leaving the links to my other social media handles in the description below. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Take care, guys. Stay safe. Enjoy your weekend, and also look forward to all the car launches that we have in the upcoming weeks. And of course, enjoy the 2024 Formula 1 season. I'll see you guys very soon. Take care.